people asking for volunteers. Please don't come down right away. I don't even think they know that they can help. Anyway, the first responders. So guys, if you don't have to come back, please don't. We will get the word out as best we can. We don't need more people down here. We still got boat patrol hours and this stuff. Big Pine is going to be hurt pretty bad. Sorry.
Well, somebody picked this one. So, nice one. They have lights on the front. Down there. As you can see. The damn coconut tree still up.
Thank you from Texas. Sorry you guys get it too. We know.
Watch Walker. Watch Walker. Watch Walker.
The hotel is in the lobby. Look at the lobby, a big plaza, no pool. Look at the lobby. He's sitting inside here. Oh my God. Look at the hotel upstairs, mashed up. Oh my God. Look. We sit in the hotel. Oh God. Boy, oh my God. Look. No more pool. That's the lobby downstairs. This is what's happening right now. Brasília isn't here yet. It is rain. Right now we are safe, but we have to close all.
That's the Christmas tree. But she survived all the hurricanes. Let's see her survive this. This, man. This is gonna be bad. We still got it coming for us. Yeah, if this reach Miami, if this hit any part of the US like this, it's gonna be disastrous. Traffic. That's real hold up. Louis was a high wind. This is a hurricane. reach Miami, if this hit any part of the US like this, it's gonna be disastrous. They're gonna be catastrophic. Real model.
Hurricane Irma and St. Thomas. That tree over there fall down. There were some boats in the water. Could barely see them. Another boat overhead crashed.
Some call them the best of the best. Some call them veterans. We call them our team.
Pay legal bills for Michael Weinstein's gang. That's right. They go. You can surf and stream for only $20.
Want to be out in these conditions, whether on foot or in a vehicle. So they have said that right now what they're getting are calls of down power lines. And that is something that, of course, what happened then. People who are still in the Keys right now, the National Weather Service, especially further down the road from where we are in Key West, where we had some video there of the waves coming over, and what we know is that power is out to a lot of those residents there. There are some 70,000 people in the Florida Keys. Mandatory evacuation orders had been issued, but, you know, we were in Key Largo yesterday doing some reporting from there. We had folks coming out of their homes even as the storm surge just yesterday was coming over and starting to flood their own streets. And you try to get a sense of why is it that some of these folks who are longtime residents of the Florida Keys, I'm just going to turn my back to you to keep an eye on this, make sure there's no debris coming, but why is it that they decide to stay? And what they say is that they understand the dangers that they take when there is a hurricane like this. Back to you.
Thanks, Elaine. We want to bring back Lonnie Quinn, Chief Web. It's going to continue up along the. Going to take. The minute this gets, like, say, you know, up north of Naples, now look, now Naples starts catching all that push coming in from the ocean. That's going to be big storm surge. All the way, you know, places like Marco Island dealing with some real hardcore effects. Let's talk about Marco Island. Beautiful, beautiful place. I mean, the storm surge there, they're saying 9 feet or more. It potentially, you ready for this? Potentially could be 10 to 15. Now, known for its beautiful beaches, it's not just the beachfront. We're talking a potential storm surge, 10 to 15 feet. So that's not just those oceanfront homes. Look at this. This could inundate, in fact, the entire island if it's going to be as high as that. All right. Now, it's not a guarantee, but if it goes 10 to 15, which is the maximum they're saying, it basically puts the entire island underwater. Again, I said storm surge is going to be one of the signatures of this storm, Nora.
Wow, Lonnie, when you say that, that is so incredibly scary for Marco Island and others. That storm surge, as you mentioned, is going to be the signature of this storm, the fact that it could flood out entire areas.
Remember this.
Good morning. It's so strong now, Nora, that moved in from the middle of the street. It was just too dangerous. It was too hard to stand out there. Too many flying objects, as we all have heard. Projectiles are a significant issue in these hurricanes. And this street out here is trashed with palm fronds and all sorts of debris. I went out to the middle of the street to try to get a measure of how strong the winds were blowing. This sign that had come flying down, to give you a sense that this thing would cut somebody's head off if it hit them. And it also occurred to me that
it's barreling through the lower Florida Keys right now. It is a major Category 4 storm with sustained winds of 130 miles an hour. The pictures coming in this morning from the Sunshine State depict slashing wind and rain, bent and broken trees, pounding surf. Irma is expected to spend the next day and a half tracking up the west coast of the state of Florida, Naples, Fort Myers, Sarasota, St. Life-threatening hazards on both sides of the peninsula. It will be tomorrow afternoon before the storm crosses the Florida Panhandle and then hits Georgia and Alabama. 36 million people are in the path of this storm, according to the National Hurricane Center. Tens of thousands are in shelters this morning, and for many of them, it's too late to get out, and it's only going to get worse. We have reporters in Key West and in major cities along both East and West Florida coasts this morning. We're going to start with CNN's Kyung La. She's in Miami Beach, which is getting hit with hurricane-strength winds. Kyung, what are you seeing?
I can tell you what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling. It's even trying to wear a ball cap tied to your head. It's very, very difficult to keep anything secure. What we're seeing is not just flying ball caps, but flying signs. The winds, I'm going to step slightly out of the way. You can see for yourself what it looks like out here as these hurricane force gusts come through. We're anticipating it to get much worse. We're just beginning to see this here, Jake. What we are now hearing from the Miami Beach Fire Department and the police department is that they are no longer able to make any rescues because of what you're seeing here. The debris is a major problem when it comes to winds like this. What they are concerned about most right now here in Miami Beach are the street signs that fall to the ground. The coconuts that might be flying off the palm trees, tree branches. We have seen, when we first got out here a while ago, windows and the glass, flying glass is also a concern. when we checked in with the fire department, they said that they were quite busy for a while. They're trying to do some responses overnight. Late in the evening yesterday, they even pulled a man out, someone, I'm not sure of the gender, pulled someone out of an elevator because of loss of power. Losing power here is a problem. We woke up to no power, and there are stretches of this city that simply does not have any power. As far as rescues happening right now, simply unable to happen. You can see the type of wind that I'm standing in. They can't send out their police and
Their service has been warning for hours. There is nothing to do but wait. Wherever you are, it is not time to try and seek any kind of shelter. Stay where you are. It is just not recommended that anybody be out, especially further down the road from where we are in Key West, where we had some video there of the waves coming over. And what we know is that power is out to a lot of those residents there. There's some 70,000 people in the Florida Keys. Mandatory evacuation orders had been issued, but, you know, we were in Key Largo yesterday doing some reporting from there. We had folks coming out of their homes, even as the storm surge just yesterday was coming over and starting to flood their own streets. And you try to get a sense of why is it that some of these folks who are longtime residents of the Florida Keys, I'm just going to turn my back to you to keep an eye on this, make sure there's no debris coming. But why is it that they decide to stay? And what they say is that they understand the dangers that they take when there is a hurricane like this. Back to you.
Thanks, Elaine. We want to bring back Lonnie Quinn, chief weathercaster of our New York station, WCBS, for one more look at Irma's forecast. Lonnie, good morning.
Good morning to you, Charlie. Let's get straight to the cone then. Here's what the National Hurricane Center has pushed out. They're saying this storm has already made its landfall in the lower Keys. It's going to continue.
These four that I know of personally that have good friends waiting the storm out.
You say it's catastrophic. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Right now I'm looking over the canal next to the house, behind a triple pane window, and boats are being ripped off the davits. Palm trees are leaning over sideways. We just saw a tree blow down the street. Lines are coming, the power lines are coming down right now, and it's just a very eerie howling noise, nonstop.
Obviously, hurricanes, the wind, as has been noted on CNN, the wind gets a lot of the attention, but it's the water that is the most deadly at the end of the day. Most victims of hurricanes, people who are killed by hurricanes, die because of drowning. Tell us about the water. Do you see a storm surge? What's going on?
There is a small surge taking place right now behind this particular house. We're seeing it's about, I'd say it's between 3 and 5 feet behind this house. There are 2 seawalls here, and it has not breached the second one other than the occasional wave, but we expect that to change. We've also heard down the street that there is 2 to 3 feet of water in some other people's houses that are more in low-lying areas.
Are those people that are still there, or are those just homes that...
No, some of them are with us right now, and some of them have found other places.
Are you a resident of Key Haven?
No, I live in Key West proper.
Is this the worst storm you've ever experienced?
It's the worst storm I have been through myself personally, yes. But I grew up on the Isle of Palms in Charleston, South Carolina, so I am familiar with what catastrophic storms can do. Hurricane Hugo came through in '89, and I remember it very well.
Are you personally scared right now? I mean, you're in a building that I understand is as safe and secure as a building can be, but you are still in an incredibly vulnerable place during an incredibly vulnerable time.
Well, no one's dancing in front of windows right now. We all have life jackets and shoes on. We have kits ready to take with us, and if something should happen. So I won't say we are panicking by any means. We have a lot of really level-headed people here, but we are definitely paying attention to what's happening outside and hoping that this eye wall will pass pretty quickly.
Now, you're a first responder. You can't go out to do anything right now. First responders, once the winds get above 40 miles per hour or so, you have to shelter in place as well.
That's correct. There is absolutely no way anybody can be outside right now. You would not be able to stand or walk at all in the wind that I'm seeing through the window right now.
All right, Maggie, stay in touch, stay safe. We're all thinking and praying for people in Florida right now. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Senator John McCain in his first TV interview since returning to the Senate after that cancer diagnosis. We're also going to talk to Senator Marco Rubio in Florida and Governor Rick Scott in Florida.
When we first got out here, they are definitely kicking up out here. This might be the last time we're allowed to go live because it almost is getting to be too dangerous out here. But I do want to show you, this is the pool. This is the pool of the hotel that we are staying at. We already have debris that's flying out at us over here. A stick just hit us. You can see the trees are just moving out here. The wind is coming right at us. Honestly, the rain is falling much harder than it was earlier this morning when we first got out here. This morning, we didn't see anybody on the beach, but about an hour ago, I actually saw a woman who was taking her dog out. She wanted to take him out to the bathroom before they're trapped inside for the next couple of days out here. Now, if you follow me this way, I want to show you guys the beach. Maximo Irma across the parts of southern Florida. 75 to the end of 120 miles per hour. But I want to point out to all the Key West right now, even out there when it's not point, they are offline thanks to that eye wall moving through. I expect when all said and done, you'll see a couple of 40 miles per hour last several hours or so. That continues to near the pier, maybe a mile and change away. But a big concern. Take a look at the video shot early this morning around the Naples area. Start to see some tree damage. Low probable for the wind gusts. They will only increase as we get about the rest of the day. And that's a big concern. On top of that, we've had nearly 2 weeks of rain. That's also softening the ground. We've had our fair share of rain the last couple of months.
feet of a tornado down southeast. You get that twisting motion in the atmosphere, very difficult to detect on the radar, and in fact, very difficult to see. They're going to be rained back in many areas here across central and south Florida, so it's really best to just be sheltering as you would anyway from, of course, hurricane conditions. So it's more kind of an 8 across South Florida as well as the Space Coast of Florida as well. That is basically an 80% chance of seeing tornadoes today, and also a 5 for the coastal Georgia areas and down towards the first coast of Florida, including Jacksonville. So again, be aware of these situations. I know the power is already flickering and going out in certain areas. Hopefully you've got a way to get those warnings, because it's going to happen so quickly. Sometimes if the water's stopping to move on shore, typically they're not quite as strong as those tornadoes you would see with those thunderstorms out in Tornado Alley, but still, they can cause damage, they can cause harm and injury as well. Tomorrow, we bring the threat a little bit more inland. We're talking about Atlanta. Of course, we've got those tropical storm warnings now in effect for Atlanta, by the way. Down towards Macon, over towards Savannah, a lot of South Carolina. You're going to be 5 miles per hour, surrounded by rain. So we're talking about perhaps rain-wrapped tornadoes. And you can see right here south of Fort Lauderdale, Broward, Miami-Dade County, now under a tornado warning in Hollywood, Miami Gardens, Pembroke Pines, until 8 o'clock as well. So again, quick spin-ups of tornadoes. We've got the wind here in Hope, and experiencing some of these very strong winds right there in Miami-Dade County. Mike, do you hear any sirens going off with the tornado warnings?
Well, I don't hear any sirens. I can barely hear anything except the roar of the wind here downtown Miami, right over the Miami River, the Brickell area, and this wind is unrelenting. Miami International has gusted to 68 miles an hour, and I'm concerned that we gusted a little bit higher, maybe up to hurricane force, because we're right on the water. I can't even look into the rain and things are there, but I want to have it when I let this go.
Jacksonville, Florida area. area, and a 4 for the interior section of Georgia. So, again, tornado warnings could be happening very quickly here. We want everybody to stay on top of it. Mike said,
customers for that tower of about 1.2 billion. So, down here, we still have the lights are still on. The power down here is underground, but then there's power. Here's somebody up in a vehicle. This is the first person we've seen all morning driving in this. I'm not sure what they're thinking. Well, now they're going to back up here. And I guess they decided that it's better to back up and not come out here. You should stay home and shelter in place. Not today when you're driving around. We've got our protection here. I come out of the element on one side. You're only going to go back behind the building. There's no wind or no rain. Now, here, right across Miami Beach, Port Miami, where all the community shuts down. And right down here in this Brickell section,
customers in Miami-Dade that don't have power at this time. The number will fluctuate up and down. As wind speeds come down, their groups are deployed. So please have patience. That's what we're asking for.
And at this point, FPL workers.
Area is safe, but as soon as that wind speed hits, they have to shelter down. So what we're asking for again is the public. Yes, you report the outages. Chances are FPL system, it's pretty sophisticated. They probably know if there's an outage. However, the most frustrating aspect, if it is, the most frustrating aspect would be without power. That's actually not so bad. What we are concerned with here in the county, of course, is storm surge. The forecast yesterday was 4 to 6 feet maximum, especially in the southern end of the county, which is why Mayor Jimenez had ordered that evacuation of Zone C, portions of Zone C. It's because of the storm surge. And that actually would be more of an event as the storm went up. The further up that storm went, the chances of a storm surge increasing. So we by no means are looking at just an afternoon event. We're talking about an event that drags on into the late evening hours, possibly even past midnight.
So it's going to continue. Do we know what certain zones have been affected?
All of them. Zone A and B, which are mostly coastal. The reason why the mayor issued that evacuation order is because we understood that the likelihood of flooding was higher in those areas. And we also did the same in Zone C. And all of that is based off of the National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center providing us a steady stream of updates. When I leave here, I'm going back in and talking to the Weather Service, Florida National Guard, everyone that's involved in not just the storm preparations and now during the storm, but also the recovery. So I'll have that information. But please, again, stay indoors. That's the key message. If you have power and can watch stations like yours, I apologize, or listen to radio or read, please do so. But understand that the information coming today, a lot of it is going to be asking for patience on behalf of our residents. We're in this for the long haul. It's going to be a long day.
And what's that message that you want to send out to residents? I know maybe there's a lot of anxiety. People have been asking me, how much longer is this going to take? How much longer are we going to hear that howling sound?
One of the challenges that we're having with this storm, according to the Weather Service, is up until last night, it was moving at 5-6 miles an hour, the storm itself. Okay, when that's the case and you have a slow-moving storm, it's going to take time to clear the area. So I can't give you an exact figure of how much time. All we've been told by the Weather Service in their forecast is this is an all-day event.
But the county is ready. The county is prepared as soon as the storm is over. That's the type of reassurance that we want to give our viewers. It's okay. Just stay put at home and let the county get the first responders to go out there and not you.
This isn't our first rodeo. There will be damage. There will be things that we can evaluate later and say, okay, maybe we could do better. But ultimately, this is the best, as Mayor Jimenez has said, this is the best prepared county, at least in the state of Florida, he feels, in the country. But again, that doesn't mean we're not going to have damage. It's just we have to weather the storm together, and we are asking for patience. Please stay in your homes. Do not venture out and wait this out with us. And as soon as we can get all our services deployed, the trash pickup, that's going to be a big service request, we will do so. But we need this storm to clear.
And let the professionals do their job. Thank you, Mike. We'll see you later with the mayor. He'll be out here a little bit later today. All right, well, there you have it. Rick Rudabay, back to you.
Maribel, thank you very much.
Thanks,
and we have
Maribel.
word that Florida utility officials say more than 1 million customers are without power throughout the state of Florida. So it is a situation that we're all going through together, and you just have to pack your patience.
Yeah, and this is not a surprise. This was expected. We knew that there would be well over 1 million people who lose power as a result of this storm. And if you are one of them and you're listening to us on the radio, we're glad you're with us. We understand that you're just sort of listening to our voices. I'm hearing from a number of you on social media. I love hearing from you, so keep sending me your messages if you can. And we're going to try to describe as best we can the images that we're broadcasting. So even if you can't watch the pictures, we'll let you know what it is that we're showing and what it is that's going on outside, so you have a visual sense of all of this. And there are a number of radio stations within our Hurricane Radio network that you can tune into, both in Miami-Dade and down in the Keys. So we would encourage you, if you but you have a battery-powered radio, go through the dial. You'll find us. We're there, and we're going to help you get through this. We're all going to do it together. Riel Creighton is in Doral, and she has been covering the storm here in southwest Miami-Dade. Riel, can you hear us? Can you describe for us what's going on where you are?
Well, it's extremely windy. We're actually by a building that's blocking a lot of the wind, so this is the force, and what you're seeing right now is what's coming through despite having that building right next to us. You know, we'd talked to a lot of people about, because we were in downtown Miami earlier, and we were really actually getting knocked around, and it's just like Mary Bell said, we had been out since about midnight. The wind has been strong since we got out earlier this morning. But like Mary Bell said, those wind gusts can come as a surprise, even to us. We were expecting this, but not expecting it quite so early. We were out at about 4 a.m. this morning, and we had about a 50 to 60 mile per hour wind that nearly knocked both me and my photographer off our feet. So that just tells you how sudden this can happen, how surprising it can be even to us. Right now, hard to tell because we've got this building blocking us. We're actually right outside the studios where we came to take shelter and try to be safe from the storm, but you can see the trees here. This is just outside of our studio in Doral here. Even down on the ground here in the parking lot, there's a lot of debris, a lot of tree limbs that are down. There are palm fronds that are all over the road. We just watched a piece of siding earlier this morning that came off part of our building, so there already is damage out and about from this storm.
Yeah, we can hear the wind here in the studio. We can definitely hear it. So to get a visual of that is helpful for everyone who's kind of inside, not going outside, paying attention to the warnings. That's why we have our team of reporters to give you those visuals if you're curious about what's going on outside.
Riel, you said you were blown off your feet. Describe for us what that was like.
Well, I'll tell you because I've never experienced anything like that before. And it came as a surprise. I knew it would be windy. We've been standing out there for a good while. We had been doing live hits all morning. We were actually in downtown Miami to cover some flooding that was down there on Biscayne Boulevard. And we moved up just away. And before we got out there, we could feel that our live truck was rocking a little bit, but it was nothing extreme. But then it came literally out of nowhere. I was talking, and a gust of wind blew me back. I felt like I couldn't actually keep myself steady for a moment and get my balance. I was actually trying to come back to let everybody know that I was fine and that we weren't injured in any way, but it was a pretty extreme experience, I will tell you that.
Who are you working with? Who's your photographer?
It's Brian Shanahan, who was also lost his balance and then actually lost the camera in the process.
I think it's important for viewers to know every time you see a reporter on the air, he or she is working with a photojournalist as well who is behind the camera, also braving the same kinds of conditions as the reporters are. And I just want people to know that you're working in teams, and so just because you see a reporter doesn't mean that the reporter is sort of standing by herself. She's out there with someone who is also doing very difficult work in order to bring us these pictures and help us cover this story.
And Riel, you said you were driving around downtown Miami today. Can you describe some of the flooding situation you saw there earlier?
Well, it was pretty early when we were down there. There was definitely some fairly significant flooding. I'm not going to say it was really heavy flooding, but I'm going to say it was about 3 to 4 inches of flooding that we encountered over on Southeast First, right at Southeast First. It was right by the Intercontinental Hotel. I know that there are some infrastructure issues that cause flooding routinely in parts of Miami, but from what other people tell me, that's not an area that commonly floods, and certainly not like that. And this was pretty early on in the night before we had been getting some of those heavier bands of rain. So the rain has actually picked up significantly since we were out there. We were also seeing, like I said, lots of downed trees. There was a tree down. We were getting off 395. The exit to Biscayne was almost completely blocked by a large tree that had come down in the wind. And even as we were driving back to get back to safety, get back to cover and take shelter, we were seeing all of these green flashes of lights in the background all around the city, which we can only assume are transformers that are exploding, and that there are quite a few people that are probably without power at this moment.
Riel and her cameraman, Brian. Be safe out there. Stay on your feet, please, and we'll check back with you in a little bit. Let's go to Fort Lauderdale now, and this is an area we have seen some very serious wind gusts there, and of course there are a lot of high rises in Fort Lauderdale, especially towards the beach. A lot of people who are hunkered down, and a lot of people who are without power right now. Hank Tester with more on the conditions in Fort Lauderdale. He filed this report.
We're at the Westin Hotel in Fort Lauderdale, early morning. Take a look out there. The winds are not too bad. However, earlier this morning we had a pretty good feeder band through this area, and it kicked things up pretty good. You can see palm fronds are down and so on. But as far as any damage in this particular area, no problem whatsoever. Pardon me, those tornadoes that we covered yesterday, the mayor of Fort Lauderdale telling CBS 4 News no damage because of that, and so that's good. I just tell you right now, I mean, things right in this area are status quo, but let me also caution you, in the hurricane coverage, this is a time where there's a lot of doubt, don't know what's going on, first responders, officials, media hasn't had a chance to get out and really take a look and see what the situation is. As soon as we get out of here, we will go on patrol and see if we can get you some information about what we have as far as damage in the area. Here we go with another little blast of fresh air this morning, if you will. Hasn't been a lot of rain in this particular area, and the interesting thing is power has continued to be on. Looking out from my hotel room, you can to the north of here in the city area, you can see that there are lights on. And I was a little worried this morning when I got in the elevator. I went, oh, why didn't I book on the second floor? So I'm on the 8th floor. And what happens if electricity goes out when I'm going down? Oh. So, you know, those are things you kind of think about after the fact. So basically, what we'll try and do is get over towards where we were yesterday. I doubt if they're going to let us get onto the barrier island to check and see what the situation is out there. But if we can, we will. Our plan is to drive around a bit and continue to feed you what we call these look lives, which are on video, and then we'll get our live component going here a little bit later in the day. Just a quick word, Key West used to cover down there a lot. Heart goes out to those people, and you know, it's funny when you get into these situations, you tend to sometimes focus on one thing. In Ernest Hemingway's house in Key West, on the second floor, I know exactly where it is a plate that was done by Pablo Picasso. They were friends. And that plate is absolutely spectacular. And I've just been fixating on, I hope it's okay, you know. It's those little things like that you think about when, even though there's a big picture going on, you know, so Godspeed to those folks. Hopefully not too many people stayed. Anyway, our situation here, just fine. We'll be jumping around, getting into the backs of buildings, getting away from the wind and the rain. So far, it seems like a dry storm up this way, and we'll get out there and see what we can do for you today and get some more of these reports heading your way. That's the very latest from Fort Lauderdale. I'm Hank Tester, CBS 4.
Thanks very much. Talking about Picasso, you know, we all have little treasures that we care about, not necessarily priceless ones like that at the Hemingway house, but still a lot of people taking care of things that are meaningful to them, family heirlooms, photo albums, things that just cannot be replaced. And so we certainly hope that when all of this is all done, people have been able to hang on to those things.
And we talk about treasures, and I can't help but think about how the Keys is really their treasure of Florida and of the country, really.
A treasure in and of itself.
Unique place.
For sure. Let's take a look outside. We have a live picture from I-95. This is Southwest 10th, and you can just see that the I-95, which ordinarily on a Sunday morning around 10 o'clock would have a lot of traffic right now, even on a Sunday, just completely dead. There is nobody out there, and that is a good thing. But you can see the roadways are covered in a lot of water, just not safe for driving right now. I'm trying to read what that sign says.
I think it says shelter, something about sheltering in
Yeah,
place.
the camera is a little wobbly, obviously, because of the weather conditions. But there have been signs all over. If you're watching us from somewhere outside of South Florida or outside of the state of Florida, all the highways here, the tolls have been suspended for days now. The governor suspended the tolls statewide in order to make evacuations easier for everybody. And so as you've driven around the roadways here, whether it's 95 or 75 or wherever you are, we've been seeing these signs that say that the tolls have been suspended by order of the governor, and there is one vehicle on the road there. It looks like it's out there braving the elements. We certainly hope that driver only has a short distance to go, because it's really not safe to be out on the highway right now.
Yeah, we hope that driver is okay. All right, meteorologist Lisette Gonzalez is in with us, got a little bit of rest, and is back forecasting for us.
Hi, Lisette.
Ruta Bay, and I'm glad to hear you all got a little bit of rest too, because obviously we have been tracking Irma for days, and now we're in it, and now we are going to see even worse weather as we head throughout the next 4 to 6 hours. And as we take a look at the radar, Hurricane Irma did make landfall at 9:10 a.m. at Cudjoe Key, and that's in the lower Keys, with 130-mile-per-hour winds, and still seeing that eye wall is just battering parts of the lower Keys, including Key West, Big Pine Key, Marathon. Look at these dark shades of red. That's where we are seeing likely the most destructive winds and the heaviest rain and dangerous lightning here wrapping around the eye wall. And then we are seeing it is slowly lifting to the north and west, but really all the Keys right now getting slammed with these squalls, and really the most destructive part of the hurricane, the core, as we expected, as was forecast by the National Hurricane Center and the models, it is now pushing across the Keys, where you are experiencing the worst of the weather, and all across South Florida. Broward, Dade County also dealing with some very dangerous squalls as this massive Category 4 hurricane continues to lift, and it looks like we may be starting to lose our radar here down in the Keys. That's why some of that data is disappearing there at the end, so we'll have to wait and see. As with many of these hurricanes, because of the power of these winds and these squalls, we sometimes see that some of our sites that are able to provide us with that weather data and information start to go down. So we're hoping we can hang on to that as long as we can, because it just really gives us a perspective as to exactly what is taking place with that eye wall. And take a look at the rest of the state as we are dealing with those squalls that are racing in, and they're moving quickly at about 80 miles per hour. I did notice while I was taking a little nap during my break, the sound of the wind, that eerie sound of the wind, not as strong as when I went through Andrew. We're in Doral right now. That's where our station is located. But still, the wind was certainly shattering our shutters and shaking our shutters, and certainly scary for many of you at home who may not have power. You may be listening to us on the radio, and we appreciate you listening to us and counting on us as we're going to try to get you through the storm. And right now, we're seeing that Palm Beach was actually just under a tornado warning, but that is no longer the case. However, we're still seeing that high threat of tornadoes. The tornado watch continues through noon, and keep in mind, with some of these fast-moving rain bands, we're going to see the potential for some spin in the atmosphere and also dangerous tornadoes. So we'll, of course, let you know when we see any warnings issued. But look at Palm Beach County, Broward County right now getting hammered with some very heavy rain and also very strong winds. We're talking tropical storm force winds currently, and also hurricane force wind gusts, and that is also the case for most of Miami-Dade County. I'm seeing on social media friends and family reaching out, viewers talking about all the downed trees, the power lines, the palm fronds, and this just shows you the magnitude of this hurricane. And what we had warned you about, that although we were going to see the eye over the Keys, that pretty much all of South Florida will be dealing with the impacts. And as we look across southern Dade County, also getting pummeled here with those squalls that are just sweeping in so quickly. By the time I'm done speaking speaking, it'll be moving out of your neighborhood and we'll see some more rain on the way. And it looks like we're going to be dealing with these feeder bands setting up, which could lead to some flooding. So that is an increasing threat. Look at the sustained winds right now, 47 miles per hour. Just as I told you, tropical storm sustained winds at this time across all of South Florida. And in terms of wind gusts, well, many of our sites are not reporting because they're down, but in Pompano Beach, 64 miles per hour. And as we take a look at our WeatherBug network, indeed showing you that we have those hurricane force wind gusts. So in Deerfield Beach, we're seeing the wind gusting to 85 miles per hour. In Fort Lauderdale, right around Broward Boulevard and I-95, wind gusts of 82 miles per hour at Fort Lauderdale Airport by the Sheriff's Office, wind gusting as high as 76 miles per hour, and in West End at 60 miles per hour. You also have a few more wind gusts that I want to share with you. In Kendall, winds gusting as high as 74 miles per hour, Fort Lauderdale Beach 80, Coconut Grove 82 miles per hour, Davie 75 miles per hour, and we're just dealing with these very destructive winds as we take a look at a few more areas. The Fowey Rocks, Bowie, the wind gusting 90 miles per hour, Molasses Reef 92, in Opelika, winds gusting to 70 miles per hour, Miami International Airport 72, and again, the sustained winds right now here in these areas actually going right into hurricane status here for Molasses Reef, but the rest of the areas, tropical storm force winds continuing, and we're going to likely continue to see that for Broward and Dade County through this evening. So in terms of the timeline, we're dealing with those sustained tropical storm force winds, which range from 50 to 70 miles per hour, and hurricane force wind gusts anywhere from 80 to 100 miles per hour. It's not really until overnight that the winds begin to decrease, but then the rain flood threat will be increasing. And for you all in the lower Keys, the eye wall right now, that is the most destructive part of the hurricane, the core, which we've been talking about all week long. Unfortunately, right now, a catastrophic and devastating situation likely unfolding across the lower Keys especially, but pretty much across the entire Monroe County area. Hurricane force winds. And also we're seeing across the middle and upper Keys the worst this morning with hurricane conditions, but we should start to see some slow and gradual improvement as we head into the afternoon. So here's the latest satellite of Irma as it continues to lift northward. And just keep in mind, this hurricane is so huge that not only are we dealing with it, but Cuba is still dealing with some of those outer rain bands. And this just gives you an idea of how this is going to be just a long duration event. We're going to get through it. It will pass. This too shall pass. I know it's difficult. You just want Irma to get out of here. But I do want to reiterate some of the safety tips in just a bit after we look at the latest forecast track that Craig mentioned about staying inside. Please do not go outside to try and see what the winds are doing or because you're getting cabin fever. Now is not the time. And as we take a look at that latest advisory, it is moving to the northwest as a category.
Main highway is 10 foot above water. That's why it doesn't flood that easy. Just kidding.
You know this hotel, it's right off of Okeechobee. We've started seeing some pretty significant winds in this area here. If we take you down here as well, you'll notice some of the trees along Okeechobee blowing. When we were driving in here on Okeechobee Boulevard, we actually saw a transformer blow right along Okeechobee Boulevard. We haven't really necessarily seen power outages, but it is hard to tell because now it's daylight and you can't necessarily see all the lights. But definitely things picking up here as well. If we can show them, Brian, the stop sign here it's been moving back and forth pretty wildly. But here in West Palm Beach, things are on that same pattern. It gets really bad for a few minutes, and then it gets much better. We've actually, though, seen people who are still out and about. They're walking their dogs. We saw a guy who's all the way up at the top of this high rise, standing out on his balcony. Obviously, those are things that emergency crews and everyone are saying that you
mass by creating what is called an outflow channel, and I think that's what's occurring right now. But you're right, the entire cloud shield is elongated in response to this digging upper level trough, which is sitting there across the northern part of the Gulf of Mexico.
And that's certainly a hint at where this thing's going to go. Again, guys, I'm inland in Fort Myers, and I'm not too far, actually, from the Germain Arena that we went by yesterday. You saw the great video that we shot with Atlanta drones and got up in the air. As a matter of fact, Nikki, if you want to play that, go ahead and find it if you can. But right now, obviously, it's raining. We know that that shelter is actually full of capacity. Okay, it is full to capacity here. Here's what I'm going to assume. I'm going to assume this. The fact that they built this in a hurricane area, even though it's essentially a hockey rink, I hope that roof holds. I'm going to assume that it will, because there's a lot of people in there. Old, young, babies, if you will. The place is absolutely full to capacity there. So we need to keep an eye on that situation. Again, in Fort Myers, don't think that you're even remotely close to what is the teeth of this thing, because we're not. We're in the outer bands, and the winds are coming across the state of Florida, which means we are getting friction that is actually slowing some of those wind gusts down. That's why we've seen Naples gust to 63 only. That's why we've seen Fort Myers, I think, maybe 45 miles an hour. So this is not even a quarter of what we're going to see, is my point. And I want everyone to know that, obviously. But you need to hunker down. We're certainly getting word from Lee County Sheriff. They want everybody off the roads. They don't want to have to deal with any of that. So when these bands come through, not only are you seeing the tornado warnings that Carl's pointing out, but you're seeing intense rainfall and even stronger winds. So if we're going to get the gusts into the high-end TS, tropical storm, they're going to be with these bands initially. And slowly but surely, as this thing comes to the north, we're going to get into the big stuff. Carl, I wanted to ask you, we saw the big wind go through Barbuda and the U.S. Virgin Islands with an absolute hammer there. The destruction, literally trees like this, okay, if they're still standing, mind you, are completely stripped of their leaves, and in some cases their bark, much like we would see in an EF4 or EF5 tornado. So that's what they dealt with there. That storm was moving at about 16, 17 miles per hour. This thing is just crawling along. Yeah. So it has time to beat up and beat up and beat up areas, especially in the Keys. All right, Carl, we're going to get back to you in just a second. I want to bring in Governor Rick Scott with the state of Florida. Governor, again, thanks for taking the time to talk to us this morning. I'm going to let you go ahead and just give us an update right now on the state.
Well, first off, I know a lot of people want to help us. The big thing you can do right now is pray for everybody in our state. I know a lot of people want to donate. You can go donate $10 by going to disaster, text disaster at 20222. And as we go through this, we're going to need more volunteers. We've got over 400 shelters open. We have people all over our state. But after this, we're going to need a lot of help distributing goods, cleaning up debris. As you know where it is. It's going right over the Keys now. I talked to a friend down there a little while ago, and they're getting hammered. My hometown is Naples. I know we're going to get 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. It's going to be devastating.
Exactly, and we don't want people to be fooled here, because if you look at some of the cameras, either from the hotels or some of the news stations here, you see a lot of that water being pushed out of the canals and the channels and out even through the ocean. But, Governor, it's going to get pushed out even more, and then what we're worried about, of course, is when the storm comes overhead and then goes on by, we get the exact opposite wind direction, and that brings the water back in.
Yeah, I tell you, we have done whatever we could to get people evacuated. I know people worked really hard to get prepared. There's always something else we could have done, but right now I'm gonna make sure we do everything we can to keep everybody alive. As soon as we can get back out, I know our first responders are going to do everything they can to save anybody in trouble. I've called up 7,000 members of National Guard. I talked to the president this morning. I've already talked to FEMA. I know the president said they will provide whatever resources we need. I can tell you, I will not spare an expense to save a family. I will spend every dime I can to keep everybody alive and get everybody back. So I care about every person in the state.
Governor, there's no question to anybody that is a very genuine part of your character, and that has been resonated throughout your entire message. I want to say this, too, because of what we've seen maybe in northeastern Florida in terms of the change in track. You know, because we talked yesterday about how we really couldn't get a lot of the search and recovery, you know, like power trucks and things like that in position because so much of the state was going to get hit. Is there a way that we can get them down a little bit farther, a little closer to maybe what is going to be essentially ground zero here?
So we're pre-positioned 23,000 people to deal with power in our state. Now, some of them we couldn't get all the way down to pre-position, but the utilities have worked hard. I've talked to all the utilities. I talk to them every day. I've talked to FEMA this morning about making sure that we get the food and water down as far down the state as we can. But I don't want anybody to be complacent right now. You know, just continue to follow this. And the northern part of the state, which hasn't gotten hit so hard yet, just make sure you're in a safe place.
Governor, are you happy with the evacuation effort thus far?
Well, you know, I looked at the traffic cameras this morning. Nobody was on the roads. I hope that means everybody got to a safe place. I know there were some people that stayed in the Keys. I wish no one had stayed in the Keys. I wish they were completely isolated. I mean, I've talked to people that didn't evacuate. I want everybody to survive this. And I know I know every first responder. I know the National Guard. We're going to do everything we can to keep everybody safe afterwards too. But I'm praying for everybody in our state. I know people all over the world are praying for us.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are, Governor. Governor Rick Scott, thank you very much for taking the time. And, Governor, one last note to you. If there's something you need from us on the Weather Channel, please let us know. Please let us know. We will get that out as soon as you request it. All right, again, guys, hearing from the governor, pretty pleased, obviously, with the way the evacuation's gone. Not a lot of people on the roads, which is good. For you, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're in my area, in Fort Myers and Naples, remember, this is really just the beginning of this. The center is only moving at about 8 miles per hour. It's just slipped through the Keys. It is going to accelerate somewhat. But as Carl and I were discussing before we talked to the governor, there's not really a lot of chance for weakening here. If anything, there's maybe a little bit more just a hair of an upside of it strengthening. I think we've seen what this is going to be as it comes into Southwest Florida. What it depends on is how close we're going to get to that eye wall. That's what's going to cause the problems. Marco Island, you certainly could get into this next in terms of the ferocity later on this afternoon. We expect Naples to get it. We expect Fort Myers to get it. We expect Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda, up the chain. Now, granted, as we go north, it is going to lose some steam, especially if it comes on shore and it starts to interact with that wind shear that's aloft. So eventually that same thing that may be holding its own right now, it is going to eventually start to take the wind out of its sails. Excuse the pun there. All right, just down the road from me is my good friend Paul Goodlow. Paul, let's see how things are going down there. Paul, what I want to know from you is what have you, I think I saw you on the water earlier. What have you noticed with the water? I mean, is it just generally being pushed on out to sea?
It is. In fact, we're getting some of the strongest wind gusts now. The strongest we've felt is like 63, Jim. But that's a big part of what we're seeing here. Woo! Is that wind and the combination of low tide has exposed a lot more beach. I have a local here. Mark, what's your last name? McCrane. So you're telling me that this is a really low tide. You've never seen it this low before?
Never seen it this low before. Usually it comes about slightly after those rocks. But all of this here, you can see it's exposed with the conch shells, everything else. So this is very unusual.
And you're a couple of blocks from the beach, but you're going to ride this out.
I'm riding this out, yeah. I'm right across the street, a couple floors up. My apartment, that's my parents' place. My apartment's down there, and the landlord's solution was a little duct tape. So I don't think that's going to work out, but I feel pretty confident across the street and up there, 3 floors up. Place is like a fortress, and it's going to be a cool view.
Well, I hope you're okay. So I hope you're prepared for from a lack of power, and hopefully the water won't get that far. But again, it's always a risk in an evacuation zone.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one big thing for me was getting the car out of there so I have a safe entry or safe exit. And there's some kayaks downstairs too. Worst case scenario if the flooding's persistent. But feel pretty good. The power actually flickered, went off a couple times this morning. So it's crossing the fingers that we have the power a little longer.
All right, well, good luck to you, Mark.
Thank you, sir.
Stay safe out there. And again, Jim, that offshore flow, that wind coming in from the east, combined with the low tide, whoa, that has exposed a lot more of the coastline here, and it also kind of demonstrates why this area is so vulnerable to storm surge. Is the coastline is such a gentle gradient up there, and that's going to really kind of ride water up there as Irma continues to churn miles to the south. It's going to be a huge push of water, and you know, people are talking about that center of Irma. I think if Irma just comes offshore here to the Naples area, that could be worst case scenario, because then we get that stronger right front quadrant of that hurricane pushing the water and the surge onshore, both as it passes by and then on the backside as well. So it's going to be a big concern as we head on towards this afternoon and even this evening here as we wait for the approach of Hurricane Irma. And I got to say, I mean, just amazing the power of that wind, which has exposed so much more. You might see every little dot you see here on the beach. Most of those are conch shells. You know, a little traditional shell that you can put to your ear when it's empty. Those are conchs, little small conchs. Some people love to eat them across the Caribbean and even here in Florida. Beautiful tasting seafood, but they're typically underwater. But now they're exposed with a combination of, we just got past low tide, and the very strong, persistent easterly wind we'll be having now with Irma. But all this will be under maybe an extra 10, 15 feet of water as the storm surge comes this way later on this afternoon and this evening. Let's get more with the latest on Irma and the timing of that and head back to the studio with Carl Parker. Carl?
Paul, very interesting trends that we're seeing on the satellite picture. Look at this live photo from Miami, and you see how angry the sea is there as it's coming up a good bit. We're seeing tremendous wave heights as well. Winds have been gusting into the 70, 80 mile per hour range. We've gotten occasional gusts as high as 100 miles per hour there in Miami. Tremendous to see that boat being tossed around like it's nothing. It looks like a fairly large sailboat, actually, and so this is the type of destruction that we're going to continue to see right through the afternoon. It's not going to change that much through the course of the day today. Winds gusting to hurricane force through the afternoon, finally beginning to let up somewhat as we go into this evening. Now, I want to show you the trends on the satellite picture. It's very interesting because as you look at the core of the storm and you notice the motion here just over the last couple of hours, you can see that it does appear to have a north and almost maybe a little east of north component right in there. There's the center. And so if that's not a wobble, if it were to continue along that path, then it would be making landfall sooner rather than later, directly affecting Everglades City, maybe moving inland. We'll see if it ends up just making more of a wobble here to the north and then coming out more towards the northwest in the longer term. But with each passing moment here, it's getting farther and farther to the right, which is going to make it a little harder for it to go way out and out to sea. So it could be that it makes it onshore sooner. You see here the forecast track from the Hurricane Center. We may be looking at a center that is more to the right in this track here as opposed to right down the middle, just based on the trends in the last few hours as it's been coming across the Keys. But we're just talking about the core of the storm. Of course, the core of the storm is where the very worst of the weather is. That's where winds are going to gust well over 100 miles per hour, but it is a very large circulation. So those hurricane force winds have already gotten into Miami in terms of gusts, winds gusting to hurricane force. That enormous area of hurricane force gusts will will overspread the state essentially, maybe just bypassing some areas of South Florida. I'm going to bring this back just a little bit, but of course that's going to be a little different if it doesn't come right down the center line. If the storm is in fact more to the right here, then you can shift all of this more to the right as well, and we'll get into more of those hurricane force gusts, say from Palm Beach County and on northward. But we do expect that the hurricane force winds sustained will solidly come up there into Naples and Fort Myers, as well as into Tampa, getting into late evening. Let's go back out to Jim Cantori. He's live now in Fort Myers. And Jim, there's just no way around it. There's going to be a tremendous hit from this storm in terms of both wind and surge there in Southwest Florida where you are.
So, Carl, some new information to pass along with these gusts, and we knew we'd see these filter in here pretty soon. We have had confirmed gusts now of 120 miles per hour just west of Key West, or just east of Key West. So that's in that eye wall. That's where it went, again, between there and Big Pine Key. And my buddy Rob Becerra from New England Storm Spotters, and he tells me, let's say 106, wind gust at Big Pine Key at 106 miles per hour. The Big Key Deer Refuge as well. That's the one we just talked about. 93 miles per hour at Ocean Reef. So lots of wind. Joanne, give me 1 second here with you. You came here from Marco. Is that where you came in from? From Marco Island?
Yes.
Okay. So what have you heard down there so far on your phone?
A friend of mine still on the island said just lost power, windy. And
windy, right.
Yeah, windy and just lost power.
Okay, well, make sure you text her back and tell her this is not the worst of it yet. Okay, we still got a long way to go. It's still several hours away, all right? Thank you for sharing that with us, Joanne. Guys, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do what I planned on for this shot because we only have 30 seconds, but I'm going to walk around our hotel area here just a little bit. I want to show you an area that I'm a little bit concerned about in terms of where I think there's a potential weakness here that we may have to deal with. But other than that, you can see the parking lot is full, right? As you would imagine. This place is absolutely packed, this is the Marriott Courtyard, and across the street is the Residence Inn by Marriott. Both of these hotels are full. The shelters are full. All the shelters in Lee County are full right now. So hunker down, ride this out. We'll get you through it.
Probably rainwater. That's probably not yet storm surge. Definitely comes in gusts so far. It looks like a little bit of a dry band, and then the core of the hurricane will arrive. And we are on Duval Street. We've got a very solid structure here as well. It goes up in elevation, multiple floors. When that storm surge does come in later on, probably tomorrow morning, early in the morning, tomorrow toward noon.
Well, we've already seen some of Hurricane Irma's destruction in Cuba. It made landfall overnight on the country's northeast coast as a Category 5 storm, bringing winds of up to 130 miles per hour. CBS News producer Portia Siegelbaum, she joins me now by phone from Havana. Portia, what's the latest in Cuba? How are you? And what's the feeling on the ground?
Well, I'm fine because I'm in Havana, and so far we have not felt the effects of Irma. In the rest of the country, there's been vast destruction. Even though the eye of the storm actually didn't touch the mainland, it landed on an offshore key off the northeastern coast, and then it rampaged through this chain of keys that are prime tourist destinations.
Calma, aqui tem Google Fotos, backup automático infinito de graça do Google.